Parents have a consistent set of desires. They want their children to be happy, they want them to be healthy, to be successful, and for them to experience the good things in life. What connects these desires in an indirect or a direct way is, of course, money. And this video is all about helping you achieve the many goals that you've planned for your children. In all honesty, planning for your child's financial future is not very different from how one would deal with any other long-term goal, like buying a house or planning for one's retirement. And here's how this process would go. Step 1 is to identify the goals: higher education, recurring education, a school trip, a high-end motorcycle, marriage, inheritance, etc. Step 2 is to prioritize the goals in terms of time and importance so that one can tackle the right goals at the right time. And then we have step 3, where we shall look to arrive at future expense estimates as a combination of current costs and inflation. To elaborate this further, let's say you want to be financially prepared to support your daughter's education at a top B school once she graduates from college in the year 2030. Now, the current fees in 2021 for a 2-year MBA program at IIM Ahmedabad is rupees 23 lakhs. Now, this fees has been historically rising by 12% on an annual basis over the last 2 decades, and by extrapolation, the same education that costs 23 lakhs today would come at a substantially higher 64 lakh rupees. In the same manner, this step requires for the parent to map out all present and future expenditures for every visible goal so that one can have a clear picture on when, what, and how much will be required to give the child a contented financial future. Now, before we continue, it's important to realize that financial planning has 2 parts to it. The mathematical part with all those tables and calculations that we just did, and then there is the behavioral part, which is often where the biggest money mistakes are made. In fact, we have a video on the most common mistakes by investors, so if you haven't watched that, then this one comes highly recommended. But to keep it simple, here are 4 best practices that one can put to good use when managing money for your children. Firstly, ensure that your goals are realistic and don't forget to pen them down. Second, always stick to a plan. Thirdly, don't be swayed by short-term news and noise. And finally, do realize that most agents and distributors would put their own interest above yours. So the more you can educate yourself, the more wealth you can generate. I personally feel this last point is very important in the context of planning for a children's financial future, and the next section on where one should invest would explain exactly what I mean by that. Now, every parent wants the best for his or her child, which means choosing the right investments is not just an analytical exercise, but is also an emotional one. And with these emotions come highly marketable options. Child policies offered by life insurance companies, child mutual funds created by fund houses, Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, college plans by wealth management firms, gold savings plans by leading jewelers, etc., etc. However, the hard truth is that none of the investment avenues are specifically designed for children. I mean, there might be a feature here and there, but the highlight of these offerings is the way in which these products are marketed to appeal to a parent's emotional fragility. Let's take child plans, for example. These are plans offered by life insurance companies, and this is exactly the product that your neighborhood insurance agent or your banker might pitch to you. Now, a child plan is pretty much an endowment or a ULIP plan, but it does have one unique benefit, which is that this plan does not terminate upon the death of the insured parent. So what happens in a child plan is that the insurance company takes on the payment of premium upon the death of the parent and starts investing to the child's fund, thereby ensuring continuity of the goals that were originally planned by the parent. I'm sure you can now appreciate the marketability of this product as it combines emotions and savings, and it might be an acceptable product for anyone who doesn't understand long-term investing. However, since the time frame between now and the targeted goal is on the higher side, in our opinion, a combination of mutual funds and a term insurance plan can do a much better job by not just earning more returns, but also by providing a higher life insurance cover. In fact, speaking of mutual funds, some fund houses like Axis, HDFC, SBI, and others do market schemes that are labeled as child mutual funds. In all fairness, these children-specific mutual fund schemes are nothing but aggressive or balanced hybrid funds that come with a lock-in period, a high expense ratio, and often generate average category performance. Nevertheless, the category has garnered over 10,000 crores in AUM, which is not a lot, but still establishes the emotional connect that the product has with a child's future wellness. In our opinion, there are a couple of alternatives to consider here. Firstly, a lot more can be done by investing in schemes within the broader hybrid funds category rather than the small universe of child-specific funds. And if the selection of the right funds is a mystery, then do access the ET Money report card and ranking feature on our platform that will do most of the work for you. A second point to consider is that parents can look to be a little more aggressive for the longer goals that are 10, 12, or 15 years into the future by allocating the entire investments to equities. Of course, one would have to brace for a volatile ride, but doing that also raises the scope of achieving superior returns, which means more financial support for your children. Alright, next let's talk about inflation, and more importantly, let's talk about the many fixed income instruments that often come as the default choice for parents when building a financial corpus. These include products like a fixed deposit, a PPF account, or investing in the Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana or National Savings Certificate, etc. The charm of using these avenues is most certainly the safety that these schemes offer and the perceived notion of its stability. Now, I use this phrase perceived notion of stability because of two reasons. The first reason is that interest rates in these products are not fixed and are subject to change every quarter, as one can see in the adjoining table. Unfortunately, many investors are not aware of that and hence make their own perceptions. And the second argument I have to this is that for any product that is long-term in nature, where the path to returns is a stable, smooth line or is a volatile one, becomes somewhat of a non-issue. In fact, in our opinion, what one should certainly consider is how efficiently can these instruments beat inflation, because if they don't, then every additional year that one stays invested in these products only brings down the real value of their money. As a matter of fact, we think this is a more serious problem when it comes for planning a child's future finances, and here's why. You see, the biggest use case here is a child's education. And while the general consumer inflation has been growing at 6%, the education inflation has been growing by a factor of 2 and is somewhat around 12% on an annual basis. What this means is that parents who have been using a Sukanya Samriddhi or a fixed deposit for accumulating an education fund are losing about 6% every year in real terms, which is certainly a cause of concern and something that parents should try to rectify by choosing their investment vehicles wisely. Now, in addition to financial products, many parents also invest in physical assets. More specifically, they invest in real estate or gold to support their children's future finances. While these are personal choices, anyone who has bought and sold property will agree that the registering, renting, and maintaining of property is hard work, and that sometimes it takes years to dispose of a property. When it comes to gold, the traditional approach was and continues to be the buying of jewelry or gold coins, which are then kept at home or in a bank locker. While this type of gold does not earn any form of dividend or interest, nevertheless, Indians do like investing in gold as it has a symbolic connection with auspicious events like a marriage. So let's put this all together. We discussed insurance blended child plans, which in our opinion does offer something unique, but that's not a lot, and there are better alternatives to this. We also looked at child-specific mutual funds and suggest that investors look at the wider spectrum of hybrid and equity funds which are more equipped to beat inflation, and specifically the education inflation. With regards to fixed income products, these are useful especially for shorter duration goals, but definitely not if the runway extends to 10 years or more. Real estate seems to have more concerns than advantages in our opinion, and gold with its ability to retain value does seem to have a role to play in one's portfolio, as it offers a hedge against inflation and is weakly correlated to equities. In fact, creating a portfolio of diverse asset classes is probably the right way to describe what a parents need to do. And in that context, having a combination of equity mutual funds, short-term debt funds, a Sukanya Samriddhi, a bit of gold, and most definitely a term insurance will not only improve the risk-adjusted returns in the portfolio, but will also ensure that there is enough liquidity and tax efficiency to work with. Now, on the ET Money YouTube channel, we have covered many of these topics in a series of data-rich and insightful videos. But if you want a refresher, then do access the relevant links in the description of this video. No single investment avenue can take care of a child's every financial need. And for that reason, it is important to segregate into short-term and long-term goals. In addition to improving your cash flow planning efforts, breaking your goals by tenure also clears your mind in determining which type of asset class is likely to work best in which case. To put it briefly, use your savings account, fixed deposits, liquid and short-term debt funds for your more immediate goals and utilize a mix of equity funds, gold and Sukanya Samriddhi type fixed income instruments for the longer goals. Specific to mutual funds, the systematic investment plan approach to investing continues to be the most disciplined and progressive way of accumulating wealth. SIPs don't need a big outlay and one can start from as little as 500 rupees a month. And it is this series of small and automatic accumulations that makes it one of the most popular investing techniques worldwide. In fact, here's a quick reference table that one can use to set up their moderate to long-term financial goals. We have done these calculations at a CAGR of 12%, which is a fairly representative assumption of the returns one can expect to make from the stock markets. And if you too want to try out some combinations, then do check out the SIP calculator on the ET Money website, whose link we have attached in the description of this video. Now, one of the joys of what we do at ET Money is to interact with many investors over email, phone, in person, and over social media. And in one of these interactions, we learned of a family where the parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts all contribute a little amount of money every month towards an education fund for all the children within the family. So 1,000 rupees a month from the parents, another 1,000 from an NRI uncle, a 300 rupee SIP from the grandmother, and so on. And this bit by bit accumulation swells up to a family-sized corpus, which is how one of our investors got his education. This technique is not new and is a widely used approach in the United States, where a 529 plan is set up in a child's name, which creates an easy way for friends and family to contribute some money towards a child's college education. We don't have something similar in India yet, but given the state of education inflation, we won't be surprised if a tax-efficient higher education savings fund comes up within this decade for our country. Until then, talk to your family members and figure out if a collective effort can be made by all elders in the family to fund the higher education of all the children within your family. Lastly, the planning for a child's financial education might also require you to look at some better trade-offs or choices. For instance, instead of buying physical gold, which gives no interest, what if instead you buy an income-generating asset like a small shop? The shop would have the potential to appreciate in value, will continue to give monthly rent, and is still likely to have good symbolic value. Similarly, there might be a trade-off scenario where financing a foreign MBA with an education loan, which comes at 7 or 8%, might make better economics than liquidating your mutual funds, which might be paused to make 13 to 14%. So these are just some trade-off examples, and I'm sure there are many more. So do keep an eye and ears open when planning for your child's financial welfare. And with this, we come to the end of this presentation. The focus of this video was on giving users a better understanding of the planning process. More specifics on how to invest, how to allocate, how to review your portfolio are already available in the many videos that we have hosted on the ET Money YouTube channel. So do have a look at those. Once again, thank you for your time. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like this video. And I look forward to catching up with you next week with another insightful video. Until then.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.